Good morning and welcome back. You're watching World News and I'm your host, Klaudia Czerwińska. Hundreds of millions of euro were already pledged by Ukraine's allies ahead of the NATO's foreign ministers meeting in Brussels on Wednesday, which is set to focus on maintaining support for the country as it continues to fend off Russia's invasion. Poland's Foreign Minister Sikorski has said that Warsaw will pledge $100 million for Ukraine. Already, Norway's foreign minister pledged 500 million euros to buy weapons for Ukraine through the Prioritized Ukraine Requirements List, or PEARL. Meanwhile, the German foreign minister said that the country will provide nearly 172 million euro under the NATO program. Canada will contribute over 120 million euros. The PEARL program enables NATO countries to finance weapons and ammunition purchases from U.S. stockpiles, which are then sent to Ukraine. The discussions in Brussels will also explore strengthening the alliance's collective defense against the threat posed by Russia. The talks will begin in the morning with a meeting of the North Atlantic Council. A NATO-Ukraine council is scheduled for the early afternoon, with EU Chief Diplomat Kaja Kallas and Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha expected to attend. According to TVP World sources, today's talks will revolve around the use of frozen Russian assets.
We need solidarity and we need to
NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has also spoken out ahead of the meeting, reiterating on the recent developments around the Ukraine-Russia peace talks, saying that it's important that the discussions are taking place at all. Here's more on what he had to say on the doorstep.
It's important that the peace process is there. Hopefully it will lead to results. And if it takes too long or it is not leading to results, the best way to put pressure on the Russians is by doing two things. One is making sure that the Russians understand that the weapon flow into Ukraine will keep on going. That's exactly what's happening today. Thanks to the US, thanks to the Europeans, US sending its crucial gear to Ukraine, paid for by Canada and European allies, but also Europe and Canada doing a lot bilaterally. And secondly, making sure that the economic sanctions bite, that they are effective. That's also exactly what is happening. The US and Europe working in conjunction to have the maximum impact through sanctions on the Russian economy. That's the best way to change Putin's calculus. And in the meantime, of course, we hope that this will end sooner than later, because, as the President of the United States has said, the meat grinder has got to stop, and I agree fully with him.
Overnight into December 3rd, Ukraine performed a series of drone strikes on the Tambov region in Russia, sparking a fire at one of the fuel depots in the area. At the same time, the Russian army attacked Ukraine's Dnipropetrovsk region, leaving at least 2 people dead and 3 more wounded. According to the governor of the Tambov region, the fire was sparked by falling drone debris rather than a direct hit. He did not report any casualties arising from the strikes. A Russian drone attack in the Dnipropetrovsk region of Ukraine killed 2 men aged 43 and 50 and left a pair of 65-year-olds in critical condition. An 18-year-old man was also wounded, but unlike the 2 elderly citizens, he's in a stable condition. The strike also sparked fires in residential buildings and garages and damaged local infrastructure. The parties of the talks were not able to reach a consensus on the peace negotiations. However, the meeting was a constructive one. That is the opinion of Russian officials on the almost 5-hour-long meeting in Moscow. The meeting saw the U.S. delegation, including Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Donald Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, disagree with Vladimir Putin and his aides over territorial concessions. Let's see what shape the meeting took in this next report.
U.S. officials sent by President Donald Trump came to Moscow on Tuesday for high-level talks on peace in Ukraine. The U.S. delegation, consisting of 2 of Trump's trusted advisors, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. The meeting starting with an exchange of pleasantries about the Russian capital.
You've had a walk around the city. Yes, it's a magnificent city.
But any hopes for Russia accepting a revised peace plan got dashed even before the meeting began.
The Europeans put forward demands that are absolutely unacceptable for Russia, and they know it. The goal is to later blame Russia for the end of the peace process.
The original 28-point peace plan, which included major territorial concessions by Ukraine, has since been negotiated down by Kyiv and its European partners. They're once again pointing out that if Russia wants peace, it should agree to an immediate ceasefire. Instead, Russian President Vladimir Putin has war on his mind.
If Europe suddenly decides to wage war against us and starts it, we are ready right now. There can be no doubt about that.
And before the US delegation even arrived in Moscow, Putin attempted to boost his position in the negotiations. He first claimed the Russians have taken the key city of Pokrovsk in the east of Ukraine. But while this footage released by Russia shows its soldiers in the city's center, Ukraine denies the entire town has fallen to the invaders. And analysts back this up.
There are Ukrainian forces in the city, there are Russian forces in the city, they are fighting. If you look at just the Ukrainian sources, there is a lot of evidence that the Russians are taking very severe casualties.
Also on Tuesday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov hosted his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi in the Russian capital.
I know that today is a busy, tense and significant day for Russia, yet today you still found time to meet with me. This is precisely a testament to the high level of our mutual trust and cooperation.
A show of close partnership between the two superpowers on the very same day the US delegation arrived for the talks on Ukraine.
Telling the Americans, look, we can always go to the Chinese. They'll work with us. Or Vladimir Putin saying, we have taken Pokrovsk and Donetsk after, I must remind you, a 17-month offensive to try to take a single town. Of course it's PR.
With little to none diplomatic experience between Witkoff and Kushner, the pair recently emerged as more business-oriented when it comes to bringing peace to Ukraine.
When they make deals, they're not deals in the traditional sense of this mistaken label that's being used, a peace plan. They're not like diplomatic settlements. They're not like conflict resolution. They are deals to try to make money.
Steve Witkoff was even caught on tape in mid-October, advising the Russians on how to flatter Trump to get him on board a peace deal benefiting both Moscow and Washington, not Kyiv. This has made Ukraine especially skeptical before the talks in Russia.
There's no expectation by anybody that there might be that Russia might make major concessions or even minor ones.
While Russia is putting the blame on Ukraine and Europe for standing in the way of peace, Putin himself hasn't agreed to any proposal yet, even the original 28-point plan laid out by the US. For TVP World, I'm Kazimierz Łysiak.
While on Fox News' Hannity, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio expressed optimism that peace could be reached between Russia and Ukraine. At the same time, the American official admitted that although progress has been made, a peace deal is still far away.
Putin a couple weeks ago said, it may take long, we are going to achieve our objectives. It may cost more and take longer than we wanted to, but we will get it done. And so I actually think that's their mentality. And what we're trying to see, is it possible to end the war in a way that protects Ukraine's future, that both sides could agree to? That's what we're trying to find out. And I think we've made some progress, but we're not there yet.
How confident are you? Last question.
It's hard to tell about confidence level on it because ultimately, you know, the decisions have to be made, in the case of Russia, by Putin alone, not his advisors. Only Putin can end this war on the Russian side.
The Security Service of Ukraine has detained a British citizen, Ross David Cutmore, on suspicion of working for Russian intelligence. Cutmore arrived in Ukraine in early 2024 to train Ukrainian soldiers in the use of firearms and tactical skills. According to Ukrainian counterintelligence, several months later he left his job and reached out to Russian intelligence services with an offer of collaboration. According to Ukraine's security service, a Russian handler tasked the suspect with collecting intel about other foreign military trainers. He was also tasked with passing on coordinates of Ukrainian training centers. Additionally, Cutmore was also reportedly given instructions on building improvised explosive devices and the location of a weapons cache from which he retrieved one sidearm and ammunition. According to investigators, Cutmore was passing information on Ukraine's military to Russia and plotting unspecified terrorist attacks. The suspect is in custody and, if proven guilty, will face up to 12 years in prison. On Tuesday night, the European Council and the European Parliament announced they had reached an agreement to phase out Russian gas imports by 2027. In the case of liquefied natural gas, a total ban is to come into effect from the end of 2026, while in the case of gas transported by pipeline, from autumn of 2027. In early 2026, Brussels will table a proposal for a sweeping ban on Russian gas pipeline and crude and refined oil, which will take effect no later than the end of 2027. Entities found breaching the ban will face penalties of 40 million euros, 300% of the transaction's value, or 3.5% of their annual turnover. The decision on which sanctions to apply will be given over to national authorities. Imports of gas suspected to be of Russian origin will also require pre-authorization 5 days in advance. While the agreement is set to end European dependency on Russian fuel, EU countries may request a 4-week suspension of the ban. The request will be assessed by the European Commission and subject to its approval. Finnish, Swedish and British forces are training together in northern Finland to prepare for Arctic conditions and rising regional tensions. The Lapland Steel 25 exercises mark a new phase in Nordic integration under NATO as troops prepare for both defense and deterrence in Europe's far north. Susanna Jurek reports.
While temperatures nearing minus 30 degrees Celsius may not seem like the perfect conditions for some outdoor training, that is the exact conditions that Allied troops from across Sweden, Finland and the UK are now facing as they undertake the Lapland Steel 2025 exercises. These exercises aim to train both defensive and offensive capabilities of the Allied troops in the high north, particularly focusing on the conscripts of the Finnish armed forces, the uptake of which is nearing 18,000 per year. Now, we've asked some of the participating forces, particularly from Sweden, as to what the main goals of these exercises are, and this is what they had to say on the subject matter.
This is my first practice, and right now I'm just learning how to drive and drive with the troops around us.
One could say that it's a particular adversary, but we're practicing both towards our own defense agreement between the countries and the NATO alliance.
Now, whilst these exercises may undertake very specific purposes, they key focus, the overarching focus, is to prepare for potential clashes with the adversary, and that is, assumingly, the Kremlin and the Minsk regimes. These exercises come as the war in Ukraine continues into its 4th year, additionally to the Arctic region becoming a hotbed for alleged Russian activity as Russia seeks to expand its scope and its reach towards these northern regions. From Lapland for TVP World, Susanna Jurek.
The search for the missing Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 will resume on December 30th, Malaysia's Transport Ministry said on Wednesday. The probe will resume more than a decade after the Beijing-bound flight disappeared in one of the world's greatest aviation mysteries. Flight MH370, a Boeing 777, was carrying 227 passengers and 12 crew when it vanished en route from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing in 2014. Multiple search operations for the plane have been conducted since then, but all were unsuccessful. The most recent search in the southern Indian Ocean was suspended in April after just a few weeks because of poor weather conditions. An almost 500-page report into the disappearance of 2018 said that the Boeing plane's controls were likely intentionally manipulated to go off course. But investigators could not determine who was responsible and refrained from offering a conclusion on what happened, saying that depended on finding the wreckage. And so this would be all for now. Thank you for joining me. I'm Klaudia Czerwińska, and I hope to see you back here on TVP World for more news and features in just a moment.